Hard work is the key to success. Anyone in front, anything which moves has to die. That's what you are meant for. That is your dharma, to take your command from the adversity into the higher state of morale and motivation. That's where the leadership is exacted from you. A lion, when it goes for the kill, it doesn't look right, it doesn't look left. It is just focused with its mind, body, and spirit as a predator on the prey.
So myself, Gaurav Garg, and we welcome all our viewers to our show, Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Lieutenant General P.G. Kamath. He is veteran General Indian Army. He is a motivational speaker, leadership development specialist, and defense analyst. He has served Indian Army for around 40 years. It's a pleasure to welcome Lieutenant General P.G. Kamath to our show, Amazing Mentor.
Thank you.
So tell us about your childhood and hobbies which you enjoyed as a child, sir.
Actually, I was born in Mangalore, a small coastal town at that time. It was almost like a village, but we called it a town. All I remember during my younger days, Gaurav, was only playing and playing and playing. There were buffalo calves, there were buffaloes, there were cows, there were calves. Then there was two huge kitu trees in our yard. There was one jackfruit tree, always playing. I just remember one of a very, very interesting incidents where my uncle challenged me that he'll scare me. And in one of those, we had a very, very deep well. He took me to the well, held my two legs and put my head into the well from top. And he told, now you are scared. I told, no, leave me. You can leave me, I'll fall into the well. The well was so deep, all elders were shouting, please don't do it. And I was still telling him, though, Gaurav, internally I was afraid, but I did have trust in my uncle. And also there I found one unique quality, not to boast, that even if I am fearful, I could hide my fear and pretend that I am not fearing. That's exactly what is required in the armed forces. Everyone is afraid of one's life. But in spite of the fear, to have a composure and to pretend you are not fearing is one of the biggest qualities in a leader. And I really found that I had that at that point of time. And I am thankful for joining this profession.
So what was your age, sir?
I must be 4 years. That was before, at the age of 5, we came from Mangalore to Bangalore. So it was around 4 years. He just held me with my head down, looking into the deep well and telling, I'll leave you. And I am telling him, leave me. This memory is so strongly etched in my mind. That is, I think that's the fort for a leader. Later I realized.
So what about your schooling, sir? Where did you complete your schooling from?
So initial schooling was in Bangalore in some convents, this one preparatory, that nursery. It was not called preparatory at that time. It was called nursery and all. But my major schooling was from a very, very renowned school called a Sainik School, Bijapur. It was a Sainik schools were started at that time, Gaurav, so that we have our armed forces officers were lacking in strength. So these Sainik schools, which was financed by the state and the center, were basically made in order to train youngsters to join the Indian Armed Forces as officers. So at the age of, 10, I joined the school. And thereafter, I passed out of the school and joined NDA. I got through my first chance. So my basic schooling was then my foundation, and my aim, which was set to become an armed forces officer and all, was there inbuilt in the Sainik school curriculum itself. The Sainik school were designed to provide officers for the Indian Armed Forces. So there was not much thinking or option one could exercise unless one person doesn't get through to the UPSC.
So how was you as a child, introvert or extrovert?
I was completely introverted, Gaurav. But this helped me, I was not very comfortable when my father called me to meet his friends and all. Who wants to meet another elderly fellow? And he'll ask me some stupid questions. So there was a shyness in me. But over a period of time, I really went into the organization, in the individual behavior. Why a person is becoming shy? When he is shy, he gives a appearance of hostility. because he doesn't want to meet you. So then I overcome it, and whenever a person was hostile to me, I understood the underlying defense mechanism, that he is shy and hence he doesn't want to mix, and hence he's showing that, pretending that he is hostile. So this particular aspect in turn, I overcame it. And I was later, once I became friends, it was all bone homing, back slapping, bear hugging friendship, which I enjoyed with everyone. Yes, the initial period of overcoming the unfamiliarity of a new acquaintance was there initially, which I think I overcame in the armed forces, and it really helped me now.
So, what was your dream profession apart from being an army officer? What did you dream to be when you grow up?
When I was young, I never thought of it, Gaurav. I was only playing with in Mangalore, I had plenty of cousins. 5, 6, 7 cousins, always playing. There was no time to think seriously that I wanted to be something. So by the time I came to know that I wanted to be something, I was already in the Sainik School portals. So if you really want to call, I joined my dream profession because once you are in that Sainik School, Gaurav, at least during those times, all aspired to be an officer. So our entire aim, thrust in life was to get through to the UPSC and the Service Selection Board and become an officer. That was end all and be all in that particular frame, and the structured school and the school organization was also meant for that. So frankly, I did not have the liberty to think of other dream professions. It was like a raw material which is put in a machine, which it comes out as the end product at the other end.
So, how was your journey to become an army officer?
See, Gaurav, as I told you before, the entire mahal or the environment was all catering to become an army officer. And NDA is one of the toughest selection. Even today, Gaurav, 4 lakh appear for NDA examination. And 0.1%, 400 are selected. So the passing percentage was 1 in 1,000. Even now, if it is the most popular and the toughest examination is the UPSC National Defense Academy. That's the place I understood hard work always pays. You have no option that you can do a shortcut and rise. Let me tell all those who are listening to me, hard work is the key to success. Without hard work, you cannot, and you must not also. You appear for NDA with a provisionality that you will pass the 10th late. We were all very young, you can imagine. So by December, we finished our exam, and March was this one. So we had to appear for that. And let us come back to the NDA. After the UPSC written examination, there is an interview. That's called as Service Selection Board interviews. All interviews all over is a different level, half an hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. As you go rise, it will be lesser. We had SSB interview for 5 days. There they see your psychological test. Then they see your group test in leader stress. Then they give you an obstacle course. Then you have a group discussion. Then you have an extempo where within 5 minutes you have to talk. So it is for 5 days. There is no way that you can put a false facade while acting smart and here I am so. Give some style in your English and pass through. It doesn't help that way. So after SSB, your written and SSB is counted. And then the merit list is drawn. And after this merit list, you go for, just before the merit list is announced, you go for the physical examination, medical examination, your heart, BP, whatever. That was not a problem at the age of 15, 16. After that, your selection comes. So it was all through a process, by the age. So when I joined NDA, I was 16 years, 2-3 months. When 3 years in NDA, 1 year in IMA, Indian Military Academy, they go there. So total 4 years to become an officer. So 20 years, 2-3 months, I became an officer of the Indian Army. So from 16 years to 20 years, 4 years of training. Yeah.
So what all challenges did you face while preparing for armed forces?
Same. But the first is it was very competitive. And of course, the biggest challenge is the Service Selection Board interview. Now, at least there are many academies which are there, which train. During those times, there were no academies which train for service selection board. 5 days, you have to depend upon God in your heart, in your own competence, that whether you will make it or not. So there is very little one at those times could prepare for a service selection board interview, except to pray to God, oh God, make me worthy of that interview. So these were the challenges we faced.
So, what was the reaction of your parents when they came to know, okay, now you have become an officer?
They were also very happy. I had an elder sister who is now a very, very renowned doctor. So they could concentrate on her. She is so renowned. She is the, what you call, advisor to the Harrison medical textbook. And I got an younger brother who is a world famous scientist. So they could concentrate their attention. And once I went out from their from their clutches, or whatever you want to call, at the age of 16.
So, where did you started your journey as an army officer from?
That's a beautiful question. You know, Gaurav, soon after my commission, you are given some money. Now you get it during the training. And in our time, they used to give you some 900 rupees, which was a huge amount at that time. It was like 90,000 now. That we got 900 rupees, and then 15 days of leave, 20 days of leave, and then joined the unit. Unit was in desert, Jaisalmer. The war had just stopped, and there were things were happening at that time. I joined the desert. What a beautiful piece of land. When the sun rises, the rolling sand dunes where not a soul is there other than a yonder deer which may have grazed. Absolutely, it emblazons into into a gold and the desert. And then as the sun rises, it scorches you, like that peanuts on the sand which you do, it scorches you. And again, when the sun sets, the entire desert with rolling sand dunes, as far as I could see, becomes crimson red. And such a beautiful scene. I don't think one can ever really explain and visualize this. And then if it is a full moon night, in the night, cool temperature, the entire desert becomes in its silver. The whole thing shines in silver. So here I was doing my duty, walking, running, going from one dune to the other, going on my patrolling and seeing my bunkers, going along with my troops. Driving in the sand was such a pleasure. It is not on track. You drive on the sand, over the sand dunes with your balloon tires. For that, you need a special technique of how to drive. So driving in the sand dune where you are not fearing accident except toppling. There is not a soul there. But to go over a sand dune, maneuver it, change your gear at the right time, and keep the momentum on and reach the top of the sand dune this is itself a talent. So it was so rejuvenating. It was so new. It was so exciting with all my troops around. And one more thing, I used to run on those sand dunes. Okay, the horses, before they go on to the main track, they are made to run on sand track so that their muscle improves. And God forbid, after 1-2 years in desert, I got my physical training course. In the PT course, I was flying before everyone. I broke that 1 mile record there. I broke my cross-country record there. Then I realized, how am I so fast? Then I realized I was running in the sands. So initial period was very, very exciting, and love it.
So, what all type of department have you handled in your course of career?
See, 40 years, Gaurav, you will agree with me, it's very, very difficult to tell what all departments. Main thing is, in Army, we value the command appointments, where you have a command over the troops. There is a company commander, you are around 140, 135, 40. And as a battalion commander, you have 800,000 with other attachments and all, 1,000 fellows under you. As a brigade commander, you have 3,000 to 5,000 troops under you. As a div commander, you have 20,000 to 25,000 troops under you. Like that, it keeps on rising. Okay. These command appointments are one where, especially the battalion command. they say is the most difficult command in any other, because rest, when you go higher up, the direct command becomes a bit remote, you understand. As a battalion commander, the buck stops at you. You are responsible for everything that has happened and everything that has not happened in the unit. In army, you go wrong, the CO is punished. He has no other option because he is responsible. Company commander 150, he is responsible. He has no other option. He can't give a reason. This has gone wrong, that has gone wrong. He didn't obey. Who the hell are you? You are being paid because you are a commander of that body of troops, which you have to see that you go into the war and make them win the war, win the battle, capture a locality. No one but you who is responsible. The accountability factor in the armed forces is so stringent and so well defined that there is no question of telling that such and such thing has happened. Battalion commander's command is the most challenging command in this world. He is responsible for that 1,000 people.
So what all challenges have you faced as an officer?
Every officer, not only me, every officer faces only challenges after challenges. There is nothing in the armed forces which goes smoothly up in a graph going smoothly without. There is just aberrations. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Your own career graph goes up and goes down. Next moment, it will be deep down into the nadir, and next it may go into the pinnacle of height. So everything is a challenge. I will just tell you one small instance. A person going on a patrol into the enemy territory and coming back safe and sound with all his troops and doing his mission and come is a challenge. We don't know. Every day, if you lose a man, one of the most difficult time I had as a battalion commander, though I lost many men, they were on the line of control. There was continuous fire here, there, and all. Continuous fire of so intensity that anyone who pops his head is killed. See, similarly, I told my unit that anyone in front who pops his head, anything which moves has to die. Because that is your professionalism, to see that the enemy opposite to you is subdued. That's what you are meant for. That is your dharma. That's your duty, to kill the enemy in front. Because if you don't kill the enemy, no one else in this entire 1.3 billion people can kill that fellow. It is yours as a soldier you have to kill, isn't it? So that is our dharma. So in this particular atmosphere, I would like to tell you one small battle incident. I was a battalion commanding officer. I went to one of my posts. The post had a line of control going into the valley, and another post of the enemy was on the opposite side. And the enemy hills were coming down. Our hills were going off. The line of control is in the Nala in between. And suddenly I found during one of my recce's, this is the time where we gave no quarters to each other, okay? We just hit it out and killed each other. And I found there was in enemy area deep inside, a kilometer inside, a shelter had come up, which was not there in my previous visit. So I asked the post commander, Manish, why did the shelter come there? In my last visit, I didn't find. So someone has come down. I very well knew they would have come down into their own area in the night and done it. We didn't have the night vision devices at those times also, but wanted to put certain caution in the instance. I don't expect enemy to move out, and if the enemy pops his head, he has to be killed. Okay? And he told, yes, sir, sorry, it won't happen again. I went, and after 10 days, I came to the post. Each time the battalion commander reccees from a different slot, because that would have been recceed by the enemy, and he would be firing with these medium machine guns, which can fire 1,200 rounds in a minute. You'd see the means 200 rounds would have gone by that time and killed the fellows, perforated each and every body which is lying there. So I told Manish, I don't see that tarpaulin which I saw last time, that shelter which had come. Where is it? Am I seeing that wrong re-entrant? Is it on a right re-entrant? I am not seeing it. The Manish Mehta was standing straight with a smile playing on his lips, seeing his commanding officer in dismay. Do you know what he says? He says, sir, you're standing on it. Lo and behold, I found The enemy ordnance factory marked tarpaulin below my feet. This fellow had gone in the night, on a moonless night, with 3 soldiers with AK-47s crawling through the minefields, wire obstacles into the enemy territory, went and cut the tarpaulin. When there is intense, when the enemy did prophylactic fire in the night at anything which moves, and he came back after 6 hours of crawling and brought and kept the tarpaulin. With such command with you, you feel so humbled to be their commander. I couldn't help. The tears were pooling in my eyes. I looked at him. I hugged him. Then I composed myself and then went and met the troops. So that is the way, the challenges which are there and the troops which you have got, they are gold. If at all, if there is any deficiency, it is the deficiency in the leaders. They can drive, a good leader can drive so much of inherent potential in his unit and get victory under the most adverse circumstances. So that is the strength of the Indian Army.
The motivation to the soldier also depends on the leaders who have basically upbring them. What all mission have you handled as an officer?
See, entire motivation is by the officers. If there is no motivation, there is just no simple. See, you may give everything. Ultimately, motivation spurs action. You can have a good morale and sleep nicely and sit nicely, isn't it? You can command a happy team. But in armed forces, we don't need only a happy team. We need a happy mission accomplishing team. Your happiness is only a means to an end, isn't it? So ultimately, between morale and motivation, morale has to have motivation to do a particular task. This is entirely done by an officer. Regarding this one, I told you the missions I handled as a company commander, as a battalion commander, as a brigade commander in Poonch, one of the most taxing and one of the most enjoyable tenures I had, with 200 kilometers of front with the 10 odd units, all during the active time, during the Op Parakrama, when there were intense firing everywhere. It was so exhilarating to keep the troops together, to see their morale, infuse in them, and then ensure that, the biggest challenge, one of the most challenging mission, I'll tell you. On the line of control, a unit is there for 3 years. Agreed? Let us say 1,000 nights you have to be there. Leave here, there and all. Every night, during day, you have to take care of the enemy in front. In the night, you have to ensure that terrorists and infiltrators do not come inside. It was a day and night duty. Every night, a person has to go for 1,000 nights and then lay an ambush and then come back in the morning and then do the other. So the challenge to take every night as a new night so that the routineness do not come. Because in that 1,000 nights, which is lying in an ambush, you may get an opportunity 2 or 3 times in 1,000 nights, one particular trench, isn't it? Another ambush will get. So in 1,000, you will get 1 or 2 opportunities of enemy terrorist contact. Agreed? And if you don't utilize this particular, you have lost. Your 1,000 nights have been useless. So every night you have to say, this is the night I get my contact and I kill the enemy who comes. So that is the spirit. How to look at the amount of leadership to require in order to show that there is no what you call routineness, because he sleeps once, he has lost that forever. And the enemy terrorist will come and create mayhem into the rear areas of civilian areas. So the biggest challenge is on the line of control to ensure that every night is a new night. As to tell my troops every night to pray to God that please God give me a contact today so that I can fulfill my dharma. I can fulfill my duty. I can tell my grandchildren that I killed the terrorist or killed the enemy soldier. Without that, what is the use of you retiring? So every night, if you pray, obviously you will not go and sleep there, isn't it? So that was the biggest challenge in my mission. Then, of course, I was due commander. I have done a lot of stuff in between. I have been an instructor in the infantry school. I have been an instructor in the Indian military training team in Bhutan. I have been an instructor in senior command wing. Then, of course, I was a commandant of Army War College, which trains officer, junior, middle, and senior level officers, all to win wars for the country. It's only officer concentrated. Huh? At about 2,000, 2,500 junior officers, around 1,000 middle level officers, and around 500 senior level officers come for course every year. That is one of the most challenging missions where I got that every person who passes out of this Army War College is inspired with such zeal and such motivation and so much of exuberance, which is effervescent in order to ensure that we win wars for this country. And you are armed and empowered with the training, with the knowledge in order to achieve your mission.
So any movement in your career journey which made you think to quit as an officer?
Never, never. Very great adversities also. 40 years are not always, it's a sine wave. It goes deep down and then you find you are the most useless person on this surface of the earth. Then you work and then you become okay, I become okay now. That was the time where I found myself down and I found myself inadequate. Then I found, during the battalion command is a line of control. People dying. Yet one day I lost 3 of my men. And during those time, we did not get the bodies back home. We had to do that Antim Samskar, this final funeral rites of cremating the bodies by the commanding officer himself, with whatever people from the post all eyeing you. And I told, here I am a commanding officer. His parents, his wives, and all have told me that these are the 3 men, please take them into war and get them back alive as victors. And here I am seeing their 3 dead bodies lying sprawled in front of me. In front of me is also my own incompetency, which I found myself. Why could I not do it? Of course, it was inevitable, it happened. But that's not. The moral responsibility is yours. As I told you, everything, if you kill 20 terrorists and lose 3 men, the accolades and the bouquet and the brickbats, both are the commanding officer, because he is the front line. He has to face the soldier. He has to ensure these soldiers who are down, whose morale is down, is again the adversity teaches you. But to take your command from the adversity into the higher state of morale and motivation, that's where the leadership is exacted from you. How good a leader you are.
So who is your mentor as an officer?
I had an ideal who was my first commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel J.C. Pant, who became a Lieutenant General later. He was a very, very well accomplished, good in English. He did his staff college from United Kingdom, Kimberley. After a competitive examination, who comes first in the examination are sent to Kimberley. He was my ideal. See, in the mentorship part, no one mentored me as such. I mentored myself by observing these people. So if you really asked, an officer or any person has to learn 2 things from his seniors. One is what to do, and second is what not to do. You have got enough intellect to know this person is doing wrong. So what is my senior? So you only say, when I reach that point, I will not do what he has done. And if I have done a right thing, fantastic thing he has done, absorb it. When you reach that place, you see how better you can do than what he had done. So self-mentorship, observation, and with always an urge to do well. Do well as a professional. I think that is adequate for a person if he has that fire in him.
So what all awards have you got in your course of career?
God has been very kind with me regarding the awards. And all my awards, I give it to the troops who were under me. Because to a leader as a commander alone, he means he is nothing. Just like a nation without people means nothing. A command without your troops, you are useless. Whatever has been done by your troops. But the limelight also falls on the leader. There is a saying, Caesar and not the Roman legends who conquered the Gauls. So even the Roman legends have conquered the Gauls, but the credit goes to Caesar. Isn't it? Similarly, all credit of my battalion command. I got a Sena medal. Then as a brigade commander, again on the line of control, both on the active front, I got a Yuddha Seva medal during the Op Parakrama, during the hectic. The firing was so intense there. I got a Yuddha Seva medal. As a Div commander in the deserts, I got a Ati Visishta Seva medal. And of course, after nearly 40 years of life as a Army War College for training the leaders to win wars, I got a Parama Visishta Seva medal. So I got 4 medals. God has been kind. I owe it to my troops and owe it to the God who gave me the strength.
So post-retirement, what all things you do to keep you busy?
See, I'm very, very busy even now. So soon after retirement, I applied to become the special rapporteur of National Human Rights Commission for South Zone 2 that comprised of Andhra, Karnataka and Telangana. One has to be a residing fellow in one of the states. So I was selected, and for 2 years, I was a fantastic exposure I had in order to visit so many districts of these 3 states, in order to not look into the minutest details how it is functioning, like you went to a primary health center, community health center, district hospitals, you went to old age homes, you went to orphanages, you saw how the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan of the education is going on, you went to residential schools of the government residential schools, then you went to juvenile centers. You went everywhere where goodies of the state, whether it is filtering down to the last mile or not, that was my way. So it was such a good exposure, and I found so much of inadequacies, to be frankly. Things are happening, but lots and lots has to be done. So that was one. Then next I started writing, reading and speaking. I have only 2 agenda, only 2, nothing else. My nation, first and always and every time. So the integrity of the nation, we don't realize, the modern youth do not realize what is the cost of freedom. Our country has been slaves for 250 years and we have got the freedom, and still we do not respect this beautiful, this fantastic nation. So my first thing is love. Nation comes first, always and every time. My second theme is armed forces have to be taken care of. Because of all the instruments in national power, your political power, your economic power, your diplomatic power, your science and technological power, your soft power. When all this power fails, ultimately what you use, your military power, as you did it in China, with China. We have never paid attention to the soldier, the man behind the gun. He is supposed to do his own duty. Even everyone, it was such a small percentage of budget. We actually need 3% of GDP for the defense. So that our defense, that is the last power. It's the Brahmastra. If the armed forces fail, the nation fails. I hope we understand this. You have to have a strong army. You have to strong armed forces, Air Force, Navy. This is the essence of the integrity of the nation. Do we realize it? We have to understand how much of importance we have to give to the man behind the gun. So a military power, economic power, political power, science and technological prowess, all this diplomatic power, how to leverage our strength is very important.
What all options and how can a student join armed forces?
See, to join the armed forces is one of the very, very easy if you have got the competence. You can do it after 12th. You can do it after graduation. You can do it while in the final year of your technical graduation. You can do it after your technical graduation. There are so many methods to join. They have to just type on the Google, join the Indian Army. The entire thing opens up, and it also asks you whether am I eligible. Just go into the am I eligible and give your qualification. It will tell you which particular entry to join. You can join short service, you can join NDA. There is a combined CDS examination after NDA. For the graduates, there is a CDS examination, combined defense service exam. One of the most beautiful examinations. You pass and you can go almost permanent. Then there is CDS with one subject less to go on short service. And most of the short service also get their permanent commission if they are up to it. Otherwise, you get a 10 year, 15 years, and thereafter you go. So the amount of avenues available, instead of I telling you now, just open join the Indian Army, it will give you a plethora of options to join the Indian Army. Provided you have it in you, please join. But one caution, if you are thinking only of money, don't join. You be a dacoit, you be a politician, you be a businessman, go there. But the army pays you adequately. I have not one hour time only. I never found shortage enough to meet my requirements. I just want to tell you very, very humbly. And we are taken care of till our death, notwithstanding whether the government gives you full OROP or truncated OROP. These are all minor things. That is with the ministry. Ministry has been least supportive of the armed forces, Ministry of Defense. That's a sad thing, but leave it that side. It is one of the best professions you can join. And you will never regret it. You don't have to say, oh, that politician is coming, I have to stand. Nothing like that. You are on your own. Politics and all doesn't filter down to you at all. You may not know who the hell is your defense minister and serve in this country. Second is, you don't have to go to, if you are good, if you are professional, the army itself carries you. You all what it wants you to be a professional. I did not have a single person in the armed forces. I joined as a second lieutenant just because of my hard work, in spite of me being a non-conformist, a rebel and all. Fellows tolerate me because your main aim is professionalism.
So what all are do's and don't you suggest while preparing for armed forces?
Preparing. See, there are many fellows who will say, Abhi trial marenge, we'll have a trial. Don't do that. You are just wasting your time. Firstly, as I told you, if you are only seeking money, don't join. If you want a wholesome life at the end of it, you have stayed in a 7-star hotel and you have slept in a mud hole. Both extremities are there. You are comfortable with the crystal glasses and with the wine flowing in the best of the international restaurants, and you are comfortable on a dhaba sitting next to in a bench on a charpai and eating chicken with your hand. You are comfortable in both. So that is called the range of personality which gives you the experience as a service officer. You are comfortable in 6-star hotel, you are comfortable in a dhaba. You are comfortable in a cow shed, you are comfortable in a boardroom. Whatever exotic food or with absolutely celebrities who have come, you always meet them with equal, because that is the confidence what you have got. So when you want to join the armed forces, do's and don'ts, don't go in for money and don't do that trial. Go for the kill. Do all the preparation. Don't go half-hearted. Oh, if I don't do that, I'll join this. That's your safety net. You think after you have not done. But if you are thinking already, I will join this if I don't make it, means you are already adding diffidence into your pursuit, isn't it? So he said, going for the kill. As I say, a lion, when it goes for the kill, it doesn't look right, it doesn't look left. It is just focused with its mind, body, and spirit as a predator on the prey. So be a predator on your prey, that's your examination, with all your mind, body, and spirit. And in armed forces, whatever we say, we believe in God. If 40 years, if I have come out, it's only the God's hand which has protected me. I have no doubts in it. And second is, an armed forces man is very, very emotional. Why is emotional? Because bravery it's also emotional. Courage is an emotion. Just like panic is an emotion. Courage is an emotion. So he is generally emotional. So don't worry about these two aspects. These are essential requirements of a soldier. So prepare thoroughly. have leave no stone unturned. Your aim with the determination and the willpower, you have a target in hand, in front of you, pursue it with all the vigor in your life. Nobody on earth can stop you.
So, what advices would you like to give to young officers?
Young officers, I want to give only one way. Don't go astray. Your professionalism will carry you. The finest example is me. I have been a rebel. No one thought I'll rise because I used to argue, I used to meet here, I was non-conformist. But still, because it's the army, it kept on making me rise. Because ultimately in the armed forces, every superior, we want a mission accomplishment. If you have done your job, then it is such a same. Because, see, firstly, I give a task to you to go and capture it. Because I believe in you, I trust in you that you are going to do. Your main idea is to be dependable and be worthy of the task. If a person has given me a task and if I do it well, he is happy whether my button is upside down, whether my hair is this and these are all other minor things. It is on the fringes. Your main, the body, your mind, body and spirit accomplishing the mission. That's what we want. So just concentrate on professionalism. You don't have to even in armed forces, you don't have to go to your superior. If you are good, he will ask you himself and he can never what you call marginalize you. Because you are the one who is produced result. You are the one who will capture the objective. Isn't it? And another fellow will do every other work, but if he doesn't get it. So my advice to the youngsters is just concentrate on professionalism. And whichever challenges come, whichever task given to you, it's an opportunity for you to grow. It is an opportunity, your experience. Ultimately, your experience counts in battle, under fire, in the fire, when there is fear. When there is, the famous saying, I always tell my youngsters, for every man upon this earth, death comes sooner or later. But how can a man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and temples of his God? These are written by Macaulay. It poses the essence of a soldier. Another essence of a soldier is in our Bhagavad Gita, which Arjuna, when he doesn't want to fight, Lord Krishna tells him, Arjuna doesn't understand this is the victory of the truth over the untruth, victory of the virtue over the vice, victory of justice over injustice. He doesn't understand. So he tries to tell Arjuna, align your personal goal to the main goal you will be able to do. Hatoya prapshyasi swarg. If you Hitvoya bhakshayasi mahim tasmad draktistakam teya yuddhaya kratanischaya. This is the slogan of the war college also. If you get martyred in the battlefield, you go to heaven. Your personal interest. If you win, then you enjoy the fruits of this earth. And hence, son of Kunti, arise and resolve to fight. So he is aligning his personal interest. If you die in the battlefield, you will go to heaven. And if you win, you enjoy the fruits of the earth. Veera bhoge vasundara means only the veer, the brave enjoy the fruits of the earth. Vasundara means earth. And hence, son of Kunti, arise and resolve to fight. This is the motto of the Army War College. They say you have nothing to lose. It's a win-win situation. This is the country you have to defend. The sacred civilization of ours has been defended by years together, and it is in the responsibility of the present generation to safeguard it and hand it over to the next generation. How can you fail at this point of time?
So now we will start our rapid round.
Okay.
So your favorite actor and actress?
My favorite actor is Sushant Singh Rajput. Another actress which I really feel sorry for is the way Sridevi died. There is no way how she could have died.
Favorite color?
blue or cream, both will do.
Favorite destination?
Beach. I was born in Mangalore. Beach is so sacred. The waves come in, the ocean, unending energy of the ocean gives you the feeling that, oh God, give me this unending energy of the ocean. Let you be empowered with this unending energy.
Favorite car?
I have a Vento 1.6 liter high petrol line, 7-8 years old. It runs beautifully, and I will not. And it occupies the empty spaces in the very crowded in no time. I think I'm already having a dream car.
So if you are given superpower, what is that one thing that you would like to change?
Yes, one thing I want to change is I want to imbibe nationalism into the current youth. That's why all my writings and all I do in order to inculcate this patriotism, this love for the nation.
So things which are in your wish list.
I paid materially nothing. Materially, I get enough to eat, enough to move. So my wish list is only my nation has to be clean.
So any second choice of career?
I think I would like to be a teacher in whatever college, it doesn't matter. So that I can empower the children. I can empower the future generation.
Last one, that one line that defines you.
I always said, whenever I wanted a thing, I only said I can make it.
So thanks for your time and thanks for the lovely conversation, and the love for the nation is very clearly visible in the conversation. Thanks very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for watching our show, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to get regular updates. Thank you very much.